Hi students, I'm Erica from the Findlay campus. Have you ever noticed that TV and movies give us the best and the worst examples of powerful people? There's rarely ever someone who's right in the middle. Just an okay person doesn't make good TV. No, the more interesting people to watch are powerful people who are either awesome or awful, superheroes or supervillains. Last week, we began talking about the idea of being powerful, and specifically how we all have powerful people in our lives, people in positions of leadership or authority. And sometimes, just like in the movies, those leaders are awesome, inspiring, hopeful, helpful, and encouraging. All the good stuff. And even if you're not always happy with the stuff they ask you to do, the rules you have to follow, you trust them, you like them, you respect them. But at the same time, we all know what it feels like to have real life examples of a powerful person in authority who seems like they shouldn't be a powerful person. Last week, we also talked about how Jesus is the best example of how to use power, and that he introduced an idea of an upside down kingdom, the way he handled power and authority. But that leaves us with a question. What about when powerful people don't exactly lead like Jesus would? What do you do when a leader is lazy, disrespectful, wrong, or doesn't deserve the power they have? What about the teacher who seems to care less about the actual students and only cares about test scores and grades? What about the boss who makes decisions that you definitely don't agree with or treats some of their employees really unfairly? Or better yet, what about the adult in your life who talks about being a Christian but also talks bad about everyone on the street? What then? Are we required to be good followers of bad leaders? Does God actually want me to blindly follow someone who isn't kind, selfless, or respectable just because they're powerful? Or is it okay to ignore them? Is it really a big deal if I make fun of them? If the person is a bad teacher, do I have to be a good follower? These are really good questions, and I bet all of us have asked them at some point or another. Dealing with people who are in authority who don't live up to their responsibility never goes away. I promise. Even as an adult, it never goes away. Because the truth is, we'll always have people in our lives who are more powerful or have more authority than we do. And although this is complicated, the good news is that God has given us a starting point for how to respond in a powerful way to a powerful person, no matter how they're using their power. In ancient Israel, there was a powerful king named David. But long before he was king, David had a lot of experience with some powerful people. As a child, David's dad basically ignored him and overlooked him when deciding which of his own sons he'd pick for a major opportunity. As a teenager, David faced off with a legit giant named Goliath, who had been bullying the Israelite people. Not many years after that, David had to decide how to respond to the most powerful person at that time, the king. Let me give you a little background. God chose David to be the next king of Israel, so there was a slight problem. Israel already had a king, Saul. And Saul wasn't ready to leave. So Saul decided he needed to act. He decided to kill David. Great decision, right? And what do you do when an evil king is coming for you? David ran, of course. For years, David literally ran for his life. That's where we pick up the story. After Saul returned from fighting the Philistines, he was told that David had gone into the wilderness of En-Gedi. So Saul chose 3,000 elite troops from all of Israel and went to search for David and his men near the rocks of the wild goats. At the place where the road passes some sheepfolds, Saul went into a cave to relieve himself. But as it happened, David and his men were hiding further back in that very cave. That's 1 Samuel 24, 1 through 4. In case you were wondering if you heard that right, you did. King Saul takes 3,000 troops to go hunt down David, all because Saul was the type of leader who got jealous over the success of those around him. I know, he's the worst. Then, on the way, Saul walked into a cave to take a bathroom break. But it's the same cave where David and his guys are already hiding from Saul. Now, they've tucked into the back of the cave and Saul is all alone. "Now's your opportunity," David's men whispered to him. "Today, the Lord is telling you, I will certainly put your enemy into your power to do as you wish." That's 1 Samuel 24, 3 and 4. So here was David's chance. Years of being hunted down finally came to this moment. Saul had been an awful authority in David's life, and David had a chance to do something about it. One slash of the sword, and David's problems would be over. His own men were begging him to do it, and look what he decided to do instead. So David crept forward and cut a piece of the hem of Saul's robe. That's 1 Samuel 24 and 4. Okay, that's a weird flex. All of David's backup had to be confused. This was supposed to be the day when David finally got revenge, stopped hiding, and became king. But that's not what happened at all. In fact, Saul left the cave without even knowing David was there. While David could have stayed hidden, instead, he ran out after Saul and got his attention and showed him the piece of cloth in his hand. And in that moment, Saul knew David had spared his life. And what David said next explained it all. "May the Lord judge between us. Perhaps the Lord will punish you for what you are trying to do to me, but I will never harm you." As the old proverb says, from evil people come evil deeds. So you can be sure I will never harm you. Who is the king of Israel trying to catch anyway? Should he spend his time chasing the one who is worthless as a dead dog or a single flea? May the Lord therefore judge which of us is right and punish the guilty one. He is my advocate, and he will rescue me from your power. And that's from 1 Samuel 24, verses 12 through 15. David could have taken down Saul right then and there. And if we're being honest, he probably had a good reason to do it. But what David realized is that even though Saul was powerful in authority he had over David, there was a power David had that Saul didn't. It was the power David had to decide the role he would play in his own story. Here's what I mean. David quotes a saying he heard growing up: "From evil people come evil deeds," meaning evil is as evil does. If I do this thing and take Saul's life, I'm no better than Saul. I'm not going to be one of those evil people. King Saul, you may be like that, but not me. Saul may have been the killer, but in that moment, David would not be. Saul may have been disrespectful, but David would not stoop to his level. Saul may have been wrong and deserving of dishonor, but David knew that honoring Saul, even when he didn't deserve it, he was exercising his own power and honoring God. Talk about an upside down way to use power. David could have used his position to his advantage, but in God's upside down kingdom, David knew the best way to use his power was for good. In fact, one way to say it is, in an upside down kingdom, honor is greater than power. We have the same opportunity. We can choose to be honorable no matter what is going on around us. Their actions, no matter whose they are, don't have to determine our response. Does that mean we always obey? We always comply? We always give in? No. David ran for his life. If he had done nothing, he would have died. He did decide, however, that no amount of evil from Saul could force him to do evil as well. It wasn't worth it. He wouldn't become like the person he was running from. Hopefully, you'll never find yourself in a situation like that. But you may find yourself in other situations where the person with the power isn't acting as they should. There may be times when ideally the right thing to do would be to respectfully, humbly, and compassionately say no to a powerful person in your life, because they will lead you against what's right or wise. And listen, but let's be brutally honest for a moment. In the world today, there's so much injustice. We're not talking about honoring injustice. We're talking about you choosing to be an honorable person. What does it look like to be honorable in racist, abusive, or unfair systems that are used to oppress people? It looks like disrupting those systems. Sometimes being honorable looks like calling out what is wrong. Maybe it looks like talking to your principal if your teacher is discriminating against your classmates. Or maybe you need to respectfully disagree when an adult says something rude about other people. If any leader is hurting you or asking you to hurt yourself or others, this is an authority you should not listen to. We know this, but figuring out how not to listen to a bad authority is challenging. Don't ever hesitate to seek out another trusted adult to help you think through how you will respond in those moments, because it's possible that unless your life or safety is on the line, there will be times when you have to honor an authority but not obey. But that isn't every time. There are those exceptions. Most of the time, teachers, coaches, and your parents won't ask you to do something illegal or immoral, but there will be times when their actions are not great, when you are frustrated with them, when you feel like they could be better, when they disappoint you. In those moments, the most important thing you can decide is who you want to be in response. Not whether they deserve the power they have or how they deserve to be treated. In other words, you can choose to be honorable no matter who is powerful. The truth is, we all know this is easier said than done. So to wrap up our time today, I want to look at ways you can be honorable no matter who is powerful. Think about what you say and how you say it, whether you're talking to a teacher, parent, coach, or someone else in authority. You can choose to speak in a way that communicates respect. If you must argue with your stepmom, you can argue in a way that is calm and uses words to find solutions, not to find ways to make the other look stupid. Put simply, your words are your choice, and you can choose to honor someone with your words, even if you don't agree with them. Just as important is how you say the words you choose to use. Remember, they're human too. It's easy to see powerful people as not real people, but they are humans too. Coaches are going to mess up, teachers will make mistakes, and bosses are going to get things wrong. And in those times, you can respond honorably by treating them the way you would want to be treated in the same situation. Speak up. Like we mentioned before, sometimes the best way to be honorable is to speak up when it's not safe or when you're being hurt, or when what's being asked of you isn't right or healthy. Knowing when to speak up or finding the right words can be tricky. That's why we want each of you to have a small group leader and other adults in your life who care about you, who want what's best for you, and can guide you through those tough situations. If you find yourself in a situation where you need to speak up to a powerful person, I want you to make a plan for what that conversation looks like. Talk with your family or your small group leader about that plan. These are the kinds of decisions you should never have to make alone. The thing to remember in all of this is God is inviting us to participate in an upside down kingdom, in a totally different way of seeing power, because in an upside down kingdom, honor is greater than power. That means you can be honorable no matter who is powerful. That can be difficult, but it is what Jesus modeled and invites us to be a part of. And I promise it is the best way to see and treat power when it comes to making decisions now that will help you grow into the best possible version of yourself. You can start living in an upside down kingdom today. Listen, I know this whole conversation about powerful people is tricky because so many of us have so many different experiences with people in power, and almost every one of them is unique. For instance, even though David was honorable in the story I shared today, he didn't always get it right in every situation. You can read more about his wild story when you get a chance. I hope this week you talk with your small group and your leader about the specific authorities in your life and how to handle them. Because the truth is, you will always have powerful people in your life. Some will be great and some won't. But you can decide for yourself how you will respond. No matter who is in charge, you can choose to be honorable. And that's powerful. Not only that, but imagine what might happen if the world saw a generation of teenagers respond in ways that honor everyone, helping them in unexpected ways, praying for them, modeling a healthy way to use power. I think you could be an example and change the way the world sees power and authority. And I think it could start right here and right now.